Everyone wants to completely dismiss conspiracy theories as just crazy ideas made up by people on YouTube. But you have to think about it for a second. The government wants you to be perceived like that so they can keep on doing what they're doing. After more and more crazy information keeps on coming to light, you might have to ask yourself, why should we take the side of the mainstream media, especially when they're the ones controlling it? From measures made to ensure population control to how weather can be used against us. Here are just some crazy conspiracy theories that turned out to be true.
Hey guys, this is your host, American Eye. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy that video.
Number 10. The Dalai Lama Payroll. What could the link be between possibly the Dalai Lama and the CIA be? In the 1950s, as more and more communist countries were beginning to emerge, superpowers like China sought to control over more land. In 1950, the peaceful region of Tibet was officially annexed by China. Although China now controlled Tibet in the 1960s, Dalai Lama remained the spiritual leader until things started getting a little bit out of control. The Dalai Lama was urged to leave the country, and eventually he was contacted by the CIA. In recent declassified documents, it shows that he received an annual $180,000 in exchange for bringing instability to the area. The US also funded $1.7 million each year in order to supply guerrilla fighters with proper equipment. Some feel as though Tibet would have been open to communist rule after a while, but the CIA just enjoyed stirring up some drama. People were paid to protest in a violent fashion by the Dalai Lama, and it was likely impossible for him to make any kind of exile without the help from the feds. Number 9. 21 Jump Street. When you were walking around your college campus, did you ever once stop and think to yourself, hey, maybe one of these students walking around here could work for the CIA? Probably not. Operation Chaos was a code name given by the CIA in order to spy on the student body of certain college campuses who were a little bit leftist. They wanted to see if the communists had actually infiltrated us on our own home soil and our college campuses. This spy mission began with President Nixon to see what all the fuss was about, and before you know it, they found some crazy stuff. Based on what many believed on at this time, it would seem to make sense that there would be possibly a commie out there spreading their ideology around college campuses. The CIA would dress up agents like college students and get them to join different groups such as the Black Panthers, Young Lords, Women's Strike for Peace, and various liberal groups. In the end, the CIA compiled files on roughly 7,200 American citizens via eavesdropping, going undercover, and video surveillance. However, it did seem like they had a good reason to do this because they did find connections with the Black Panthers and the communists. Number 8. Government controls the media. You ever feel like the government is actually pushing an agenda by the news we watch? Have you ever felt like the freedom of the press is at risk here in our own country? You might expect the media control in places like North Korea, but what about right here in the USA? Also known as Operation Mockingbird, the CIA was secretly paying journalists for years since the 1970s in order to manipulate the media. Rather recently, this conspiracy was proven to be true, and even bloggers are being watched carefully. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security is planning to compile large databases of journalists and bloggers in order to monitor news sources across the country. This also includes social media and top media influencers across the country. A tweet by the press secretary of the Department of Homeland Security claimed that, despite what some reporters may suggest, this is nothing more than the standard practice of monitoring current events in the media. Any suggestion otherwise is fit for tinfoil hat-wearing black helicopter conspiracy theorists. This is a typical strategy done by the government in order to label people who question their actions as being mentally unstable. Project Mockingbird was also revealed to the public that Anderson Cooper was a CIA member. Number 7. Mind control. If somehow you can control the mind, you'd have total control over someone and find out whatever information you're looking for. Mind-altering substances, some capable of permanent memory loss, were experimented with. Other chemicals that could knock you out in a second, and even a substance that would promote illogical thinking, were all part of their sneaky little experiment known as MK Ultra. The main drug, though, they focused on was, of course, LSD, which would cause mind-blowing hallucinations. Other things they experimented with as a part of the project includes hypnosis, sensory deprivation, isolation, sexual abuse, and/or psychological torture. And they even talked about how to train people on the right torture techniques. They needed some way to extract information from someone as quickly as possible, from captured spies especially. Once they were drugged, they then tested interrogation techniques. Sometimes the truth can be stranger than fiction, and we recommend that you look into this one for yourself. Remember, the CIA holds archives on this project on their public website, free to explore. Number 6. Weather modification and chemtrails. You might certainly sound like a tinfoil hat wearing nutjob if you told the average mind-washed person about how the government can control the weather. In all reality though, they admitted to doing this by a process known as cloud seeding, all the way back during the conflict in Vietnam. Cloud seeding involves a process of flying in a plane and releasing particulate matter into the sky, kind of like chemtrails. This would then build moisture in the sky, causing it to rain. A highly classified operation known as Operation Popeye took place, where the government was actually dedicated to bringing a huge monsoon to the capital city of Vietnam. This would then hopefully cause a massive landslide or a flood to the area. The US experimented with different chemicals such as silver iodine and lead iodine over states such as Florida and Texas in order to bring out a hurricane. But they also tried it in places such as Guam, the Philippines, Okinawa. It didn't work out as a weapon right away, but the technology was still rather new at the time. In modern times, cloud seeding is still put to use in the Sierra Nevada in order to bring on snow to mountain resort towns. Number 5. Population control. You've seen before on the Georgia Guideline stones to reduce the population to 500 million people, and from statements made by the global elite about how population control is necessary. Many might wonder if they're secretly trying to control how many kids we have. There's also a quote on the guideline stone that states, "To guide reproduction wisely." Are scientists trying to make it harder and harder for us to reproduce without us even knowing? Finally, in a document from Planned Parenthood to Bernard Berelson, you'll notice many proposed measures to reduce U.S. fertility. Even though it was written in 1969, you notice some shocking predictions of what the USA seems like in modern times. One of the suggestions was to put fertility control agents into our water and to encourage women to work more often, reduce paid maternity leave or benefits, limiting childbearing to specific adults, and other unethical solutions. In modern times, we've seen a chemical known as BPA, which mimics estrogen at a molecular level, show up in our food more often. It's also found in our ink, food, soda cans, and even baby formula, which is known to reduce sperm counts in mice. It also gets a little bit scary when you begin to take a look at the annual growth predicted in this graph by the UN. Let us know how you think the government is controlling the population in the comments section, and maybe we'll feature you in an upcoming video. Number 4. CIA trafficking. Today we see our police becoming more and more militarized to the point where we have to question how much of it is necessary. There can't be a war on drugs without drugs in the first place, right? Many documents reveal that the CIA was heavily involved in drug smuggling, especially in Los Angeles. It also helped us find out that the police weren't allowed to bust them. The CIA was protecting specific large drug shipments coming from South America, which would then be provided to big street gangs. It's almost like they were trying to run a monopoly, and local police of LA began to question the ethics of all this. Since much of the shipments went to specific neighborhoods, it seemed as though they were trying to target specific communities. This would then allow police to interrupt the target areas, and this was all brought to light by the writer Gary Webb. Number 3. American pride. Do some people just seem a little bit too patriotic? Have you ever wondered if there was some kind of government plot behind it all? Well, you could be onto something. It turns out that the Pentagon funds patriotism during sporting events and will even spend millions of dollars on it each year. You might be aware of those massive flags brought into baseball fields when the national anthem is being played. According to a joint oversight report, this is actually a part of a military recruitment program which was funded with taxpayer money. The Atlanta Falcons got $879,000 by the US government, and ironically enough, the New England Patriots were the second highest funded sports team in 2013 by the government. People in the stands who are completely decked out in American gear are also likely a part of the conspiracy to make people more patriotic. So keep that in mind next time you hear the anthem. Number 2. Prohibition Poisoning. In case you were curious, conspiracy theories about our government doing strange things stretches back to Prohibition times. Even though drinking liquor during this time was illegal, there were many rumors going around that consuming alcohol was making people extremely sick. It still left many people wondering why. Tainted alcohol was spread by the government in order to deter people from trying to buy it. Regulatory standards required that some alcohol, even before Prohibition, have some chemicals added to it in order to taste worse or make it unfit for human consumption. The US government knew that people were still drinking it illegally and how they were doing it. Industrial alcohols that could be bought by anyone would be purified by bootleggers. The feds demanded the increase in poisonous substances to be added to anything with alcohol. This then subsequently led to over 10,000 victims. But when the companies were demanded to make their products more toxic, the bootleggers couldn't remove them all. Number 1. The Roswell Coverup. Although it might not seem like there is concrete evidence to prove that aliens exist, as most people point out, there is evidence that the government has been extremely concerned with UFOs and life on other planets. Guy Hoddle discloses in this document that the Air Force had recovered 3 flying saucers in New Mexico, which is coincidentally the same state where you'll find Roswell. He described the discs as being 50 feet in diameter. 3 bodies of humanoid creatures were discovered that were only 3 feet tall. Each body was equipped with a metallic cloth, possibly some type of body armor. Other documents seriously concerned about the presence of alien aircraft around US military bases were finally released, which proves that they gotta know something, right? Let's also not forget about Area 51, where the government had to deny its existence until 2013. More and more information will come out eventually, to the point where they can no longer deny so many so-called conspiracy theories.